This NBA regular season has been nothing short but phenomenal when you look at the MVP candidates and basically what they put on display this whole season. Unfortunately, Joel Embiid got hurt, but when he was playing, for the majority of the season, he was the runaway MVP. But then you also have Nikola Jokic, then you also have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and then you also have Luka Doncic. Now, a lot of these players are great players, but they have been putting up a legendary season. Any other season in NBA's history, each one of those people would have won by a landslide. But because the NBA has gotten so much more better and just so much more talented, and it's really difficult to stop offenses, especially with the amount of space that they have on the court, these players have been going absolutely psychotic. And one of those players who have been absolutely insane has been Luka Doncic. But for the Mavs, there is no other player that you can say, even with Kyrie Irving on the team, that is more valuable than Luka Doncic. Everything starts and stops with him. He is their primary scorer, he is their primary facilitator, and he's okay on defense. He's not the best, but he's okay. He takes times off, but it happens to a lot of MVPs who are very offensively focused. But the thing is, they have came from being a play-in team to actually being a legitimate playoff team. In my opinion, I still think that they're not good enough to win based on the play style, but they are kind of heating up right now at the right moments. This is exactly what you need, especially going into the playoffs. You can't be a team like the Milwaukee Bucks, who has been faltering left and right because they got rid of their coach, and then all of a sudden they act like, well, if we get rid of our coach, then everything's going to be all good. Well, it would be all good if you didn't get Doc Rivers. But the Mavericks is showing the exact opposite. They kept their coach and they're heating up at the right moment. But also you have Nikola Jokic, who he's been on the team that's been consistently great and kind of like consistently coasting and winning around like 50 to 60 games a year. He has been having a phenomenal season as well. Probably a little bit more quieter than Luka Doncic, because Luka Doncic is putting up a little bit more consistent numbers. But in terms of what he has been doing, and the focal point is practically the same player. Everything starts and stops with him. And it's even more so, too, because you have the offensive scoring capabilities, but then he also has to play defense. And like I said with Luka Doncic is not that great of a defender. He's just simply okay. And Nikola Jokic is not that great of a defender either, but he has to be the actual paint presence alongside with Aaron Gordon and basically lock down the paint. He cannot afford to be a terrible player or a terrible interior threat. But even still, he's one of the best facilitators in the NBA, and he's one of the best scorers, post scorers in the NBA, just nonstop. One of the most consistent, great night in, night out basis. He is always there. And so this has me thinking, is this going to be the first year where we actually have a co-MVP award? Because I don't think that Shai Gilgeous is really in the running anymore. I don't think that he has put the same amount of stats up and has been that consistent. Luka Doncic has been phenomenal the whole year, but also so has Nikola Jokic. And this is one of those years where it's like, it could go either way. In my opinion, it's probably skewing a little bit more towards Luka Doncic, but I would not be upset if they actually do a co-MVP. Now, this hasn't really ever been done before, but this would be a great time right now to kind of start the precedent of saying, okay, when we have phenomenal seasons like this, and it's really difficult to choose, especially when you have to think about the fact that these are media members who are choosing these MVPs, their biases come in. They might have, vendettas against certain players, personal biases for others. It always happens. So I think there definitely should be some type of regulatory body when it comes to this. But I would not be surprised if we had a tie, a 50-50 split for Luka Doncic and Nikola Jokic. I mean, these players have been absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And I know and I understand that I have critiqued the MVP process in the past and have said that the MVP process doesn't really make sense. They don't really value defense, and it's really hard to quantify how they value offense because it's a very vague award. Usually in the past, you would have one player who is, high and above everybody else, and that would be kind of like your barometer of your success. Okay, we see that this guy is averaging 30, 10, and 5. Nobody else is averaging 30, 10, and 5, and so we're going to give this guy the MVP award. However, the NBA has gotten a lot better, and it has been a very difficult award to give out nowadays, especially with the amount of competition that MVPs have. Just like how we looked at last year, we had Joel Embiid versus Nikola Jokic again, and Joel Embiid got the MVP award, which a lot of people, including myself, protested, saying that that was probably the wrong choice. But even still, when we agree that it was probably the wrong choice, we still have to understand and agree to the fact that it was a very difficult award to give out. Simply extremely difficult. Now, you can say that there was a lot of narratives put at play, i.e., like a Kendrick Perkins, and then also Joel Embiid himself, who's always constantly complaining and saying that he needs to be, considered in the MVP race. That is all fair. But at the end of the day, you still have to be on the court and put a great product on the court for you to make your case. And Joel Embiid did just that. And it's the same thing with this year. We have many different players who are playing phenomenal, right? We even have Jason Tatum. We even have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, of course, Luka Doncic, Nikola Jokic, and then you can even still say that Giannis is a dark horse in that as well. The amount of players that are playing on an MVP caliber level is unprecedented. We have never seen this ever before in the league. And so when we have the MVP award being this close with Luka Doncic, and in my opinion, I think it's just between him and Jokic, I think it will be apropos to kind of give it to both. Now, I know this is something that a lot of fans will not like. A lot of fans will say, well, this is simply dumbing down the award and watering it down and not placing the importance that we should. But I think that this year is kind of impossible, because when you look at the awards, what do you weigh? Do you weigh defense at all? I know offense is definitely something that people will always look at. Oh, Luka Doncic is averaging this and this and this. But when you look at defense, he's not necessarily the best defender. But when you look at the Denver Nuggets and where they rank on a team defensive rating level, they're top 10. They're one of the best defensive teams in the league. And to say that Nikola Jokic does not have an effect on that, and having them to be a top 10 defense, as well as scheme and making sure that all the wings and guards are playing the best as well, for the paint is really just him and Aaron Gordon. And they have to play lights out defense in order for them to consistently be as great as they are. And so, in my opinion, I think that does put Nikola Jokic over the edge. And especially when you contrast that with the Dallas Mavericks. Of course, it's a different team, different scheme, and he's not necessarily an interior threat. They're still ranked 18th. And so it's very difficult for me to look at that, and especially look at the fact that, yes, he does take plays off. Yes, he isn't necessarily the best defender. It's hard for him to stay in front of guards, especially quicker guards, or even swings at that matter. He's not going to be the person that guards their best players. Of course, when you look at Nikola Jokic, he will be the person that guards their best center if they're going against Joel Embiid or any other person. So what does that mean? Does that mean that we just bypass that and just look purely offense? I don't know. I think you have to look at so many different types of stats to make sure that we are picking the right person. But like I said, this year is a very difficult year, and I honestly would not be surprised if we saw a co-MVP between two of the best players, not even from America, from Europe, and Luka Doncic and Nikola Jokic.